Hello and good day. Our topic for today is credit decision making. In this video, I'm going to discuss the short credit process and the credit investigation and appraisal. Let's start with the short credit process. There are 12 steps in the credit process, and they are first, initial discussion between the lender and the borrower. Of course, merong purpose kung bakit merong initial discussion between the parties involved. Merong initial discussion between the lender and the borrower in order for the borrower to express his intention to borrow. Para naman kay lender, kailangan ng initial discussion para ma-explain niya at para ma-discuss niya yung terms, conditions, at yung requirements ng credit na ina-applyan ng credit applicant. Those are the purposes of having initial discussion. After the initial discussion, the borrower signs an application form and an authorization for the credit department to conduct credit inquiries. The borrower also submits the requirements. After that, the lender conducts an initial interview using the credit application as guide and evaluates the documents submitted. Then the lender initiates information gathering and validation based on the credit application, including posting an inquiry with the credit bureau if available. After that, the lender obtains information from other creditors in the area and searches for other information not found in the credit application. After that, there must be an appraisal of property offered as collateral. The credit evaluator then organizes all available information. And after organizing all available information, a decision is made. Tatlo lang naman ang pwedeng maging decision. Una, approved. Pangalawa, disapproved. At pangatlo, pending. Usually, pending ang credit application kung meron pang hinihingi na other documents ang creditor or lender. If disapproved, the applicant is informed. Of course, kailangan pa rin ma-inform yung credit applicant regarding his credit application kahit na ang kanyang credit application ay disapproved. That is for formality and of course, para malaman ng credit applicant ang status ng kanyang credit application. If approved, the applicant is also informed and documentation is completed. Next, there is a registration of chattel or real estate mortgage. Take note, this is pronounced as chattel and this is pronounced as mortgage. This is not pronounced as chattel, and mortgage is not pronounced as mortgage. That is silent T. Mortgage. That is pronounced as mortgage. Ano bang pinagkaiba ng chattel mortgage at real estate mortgage? Di ba merong collateral security? Kailangan mag-offer ng property ang borrower as collateral security. Kung yung security or yung property ay immovable property, that means hindi nalilipat yung property from one place to another, that is a real estate mortgage. Pero kung ang security or property na inoffer as collateral ay movable, that means nalilipat siya from one place to another gaya ng sasakyan, that is a chattel mortgage. The last step in the short credit process is amount being borrowed or unit being purchased is released. Let's now proceed to the credit investigation and appraisal. Unahin natin yung credit investigation. Bakit kailangan ng credit investigation? Ano ba ang purpose kung bakit kailangan mag-conduct ng credit investigation? Ang purpose ng credit investigation ay para ma-verify yung kapasidad ng isang credit applicant na magbayad at para malaman yung willingness to pay ng isang credit applicant. Again, the purpose of a credit investigation is to verify the capacity to pay and the willingness to pay of the applicant. A credit investigation is made up of the following. First, personal interview with the applicant. Second, documentary verification. And third, inquiry from third parties. A personal interview should be done in two stages. The first time is when the borrower comes to the office to file his credit application, and the second time when the creditor's CI or credit investigator pays a visit to the borrower at his residence, place of business, or both. I-emphasize natin yung second stage. When the creditor's CI or credit investigator pays a visit to the borrower at his residence, place of business, or both. Ang tawag dyan ay ocular inspection. Yung credit investigator, pupunta siya dun sa bahay ni borrower. Kung meron mang business yung borrower, pupunta yung credit investigator dun sa place of business ni borrower. Or pwede ring dalawa dun sa residence ni borrower at doon sa place of business ni borrower. Ang tawag dyan ay ocular inspection. Ano ang purpose ng ocular inspection? Ang purpose ng ocular inspection ay para ma-assess at ma-determine yung overall financial resources ng credit applicant. Next, documentary verification. Documentary verification is mostly done on financial information. Of course, kailangang ma-verify kung totoo ba yung mga documents na sinasubmit ng credit applicant. Let's say, ang nire-require sa credit applicant ay payslip, kailangang ma-verify kung totoo ba yung payslip. It is also done to verify ownership and possession of properties offered as collateral. Kailangan ma-verify kung pagmamay-ari ba ng credit applicant yung collateral security. Next, inquiries from third parties. Third-party inquiries are done to verify and understand the applicant's personal and credit reputation. If the creditor already has existing records from old files, it would help to pull them out. These internal records, if fairly recent, would be very useful. If the records are from a few years back, an updating would be necessary. So we can say that the older the information, the less useful. If the information is more recent, that would be more useful in decision making. Some of the external sources are credit bureau, newspapers, court records, banks, other lenders, trade references, employers, and supervisors. Major sources of credit information are the lenders or suppliers in the same line of business. Usually, sa appliance companies, dun sa mga companies na nagbebenta ng appliances, posible na makakuha ng copy ng customer's ledger. Yung customer's ledger, ito yung magbibigay ng information about the credit history of the credit applicant. A customer's records on loans where payment is by salary deduction is useful only as a basis calculating the take-home pay. It does not establish the borrower's credit character. Yung deductions kasi sa salary ng credit applicant ay mandatory. That's why ang tawag sa kanila ay mandatory deductions. They are not voluntary deductions. That's why it does not establish the borrower's credit character, because the salary deductions or the mandatory deductions are, of course, not voluntary. The deductions are mandatory. Next, let's now proceed to the appraisal. Creditors appraise the properties offered by its borrowers as collateral for the following reasons. First, to make sure that the property is something that the borrower will not forgo. In other words, there must be a strong compelling reason on the part of the borrower to keep the property. Let's say, yung mismong bahay ng borrower or credit applicant. Of course, sariling bahay niya yon, doon naninirahan ang kanyang pamilya, mahihirapan siyang i-forgo yung property. That's why, meron talaga siyang strong, compelling reason na i-keep yung property. So, ang gagawin niya, babayaran niya talaga ang kanyang utang para hindi niya ma-forgo at para hindi siya ma-evict doon sa kanyang tahanan. Next, to make sure that should the borrower be unable to pay, the property could be quickly sold and the proceeds thereof are sufficient to pay for the loan's principal, interest, penalties, and other charges. Actually, this is the primary reason of having collateral. It is for the security of the creditor. The best situation is when the property is both owned and possessed by the borrower. The motivation to pay and keep the property is certainly at its highest in this situation. Gaya nga ng example ko kanina, yung mismong bahay ng borrower or credit applicant. If the borrower or credit applicant puts up his residence as collateral, then he is compelled to pay. Of course, he would not want to be evicted from a place where he and his family live. A property that is not owned and not possessed by the borrower is unacceptable. Bakit siya unacceptable? This is unacceptable because the motivation to pay here is very low. The appraiser's main job on properties is to verify ownership and determine actual possession. So, napaka-importante na ma-verify kung talagang pagmamay-ari ng borrower or credit applicant ang collateral security. For brand new vehicles, appraisal is not necessary. For used vehicles, appraisers use a guidebook on various brands of cars and other vehicles. From this book, the appraiser has to determine by ocular inspection if the movable property has been deteriorated to a point that the value in the book must be adjusted. The appraisal of immovable property is simple but time-consuming. Also, there are many factors to be taken into account. Usually, market value is done by, first, comparison with the most recent sale of another property in the same area. Second, estimates of the residents in the area. Third, opinions of other appraisers from financial institutions. Fourth, recent published foreclosures. Fifth, zonal valuation of the BIR as guide. And sixth, most recent loan amount granted. Numbers 4, 5, and 6 need further explanation. Unahin natin yung recent published foreclosures. Recent published foreclosure for other properties in the same area could be used to estimate a property's market value. For example, a property was recently foreclosed for 3 million pesos. This amount is indicated in the foreclosure publication. It includes all interests, penalties, other charges, and the 10% attorney's fees. First, we must take out the attorney's fees. So, kung ang foreclosure sale price ay 3 million pesos at ang attorney's fees ay 10%, then ang attorney's fees ay 300,000 pesos. 3 million pesos times 10%, that is equal to 300,000 pesos. Kung i-deduct natin yung 300,000 pesos sa 3 million pesos, then the bank's total exposure on this property is 2,700,000 pesos. This represents the principal, interest, and other charges. The next step is to assume a loan-to-value ratio. Using a 60% ratio would not be right. The loan has interests and other charges. The suggested ratio is 80%, which means that the bank's exposure of 2,700,000 pesos is about 80% of the market value. Thus, we calculate 2,700,000 pesos divided by 80%, that is equal to 3,375,000 pesos. If the property foreclosed had an area of 1,000 square meters, then the market value is 3,375 pesos per square meter. This technique might be inaccurate, but it could establish a ceiling value or maximum value. Therefore, the conclusion is that the property is worth 3.375 million pesos or less. Next, BIR Zonal Valuation. This guide is used by the BIR to calculate capital gains taxes. This guide does not show the market value of the property. However, it could be the basis as a floor price or the minimum price. Kanina, yun yung ceiling value or maximum value. Ngayon naman, floor price or the minimum price. Thus, if the property has a zonal valuation of 1,900 pesos per square meter, the property is worth at least or at the minimum 1.9 million pesos or 1,900,000 pesos. Therefore, ang highest appraisal ay nasa 3,375,000 pesos at ang lowest appraisal ay nasa 1,900,000 pesos. Next, most recent loan amount. Some properties have already been used as collateral before. This could be seen at the back of the title as a mortgage annotation, or the borrower could just give you a copy of his loan ledger. If the loan is very recent, the loan amount reflects the most recent market value. Of course, pwede rin gamitin yung most recent loan amount para ma-determine yung market value ng property. Kung yung loan ay very recent at ginamit yung property as collateral before, at ginamit mo ulit yung property as collateral for a new loan, then hindi masyadong nagkakalayo yung market value.